The human's mind screamed in silent agony as invisible threads tightened around his consciousness, pulling and twisting with merciless precision. "No, no, I won't," Marcus Kane gasped, his voice barely a whisper lost amid the cacophony of psychic screams assaulting his brain. His hands trembled, fingers digging into the cold metal floor of the alien command ship as he fought against the sprawling psychic web cast by the Arachnid Overmind. Every thought was a battlefield, every memory a weapon turned against him. Fragments of alien invasion fleets appeared unbidden in his mind's eye, vast armadas of spider-like warships hurtling toward Earth, their dark hulls shimmering with ominous bioluminescence. The sheer scale of the threat hammered at his sanity, yet somewhere, buried beneath layers of terror and despair, a spark of defiance flickered stubbornly to life. "Focus, Kane, focus," he muttered, teeth clenched as if sheer willpower could sever the psychic chains. His mind reeled under the overwhelming assault, but retreat was not an option. Not this time. Marcus Kane was no ordinary soldier. Decades of brutal interstellar conflicts had made him a hardened tactical strategist and cybernetic warfare specialist. A man whose mind was a fortress built from countless battles won and lost. Yet despite his formidable reputation, shadows clung to him, phantoms of failures past that gnawed relentlessly at his resolve. He had seen entire fleets wiped out, allies turned to ash beneath enemy fire, and worst of all, he had watched helplessly as innocents perished in wars he could neither prevent nor control. Those memories were wounds beneath his steel exterior, scars that hardened him but also isolated him from others. He guarded his emotions fiercely, his trust a scarce commodity. Now ensnared in the heart of the enemy's shattered command ship, Marcus fought not just for survival, but for redemption. A sudden crackle broke through his mental turmoil. A distorted, guttural voice echoed inside his head. "Surrender your mind, human. Resistance is futile. Your species will be extinguished," Marcus snarled under his breath. "You don't know me," he spat mentally, forcing a surge of cybernetic feedback through his neural implants. The implants, designed to enhance cognitive processing and mental resilience, sparked feebly against the psychic onslaught, but were struggling to keep pace. His body ached with exhaustion. The ship's gravity fluctuated erratically due to the ongoing battle damage. Sparks flew from exposed conduits overhead, casting flickering shadows over the twisted alien architecture. The air was thick with the acrid scent of ozone and burnt circuitry. He forced himself upright, every movement a battle against the invisible tendrils tightening inside his mind. His fingers brushed against the console of the ship's command interface, a potential weak point in the Overmind's psychic net. Come on," he whispered, reaching for the controls. Suddenly, the psychic web tightened with an agonizing snap, and Marcus's vision blurred. Faces of fallen comrades flashed before him. Lt. Sarah Voss, who died during the Mars campaign, Commander Lee. Lost in the last orbital skirmish, ghosts of failures that threatened to drown him in guilt. His breath hitched, chest tightening as despair clawed at the edges of his mind. "No," he growled, shaking his head violently, as if to dislodge the invasive images. "Not now, not ever." His voice was hoarse, ragged, but filled with a determination born from every scar, every loss. Marcus had trained for this, years of mental conditioning, cybernetic enhancements, and tactical simulations had prepared him to face horrors beyond comprehension. Yet nothing had prepared him for the raw psychic power of the Arachnid Overmind. A flicker of movement caught his eye, through the shattered viewport. The twisted silhouette of the Arachnid Overmind loomed, a grotesque amalgamation of chitinous limbs and pulsating neural masses, its multifaceted eyes glowing with cruel intelligence. It fed on fear and despair, weaving its psychic webs like a spider ensnaring prey. Marcus's heart pounded fiercely against his ribs. "You think you can break me?" he shouted, voice echoing weakly through the shattered command deck. "I'm not your puppet." The Overmind's voice slithered into his mind again, cold and mocking. "Your defiance is meaningless. We will consume your mind, your soul, your very essence." Marcus clenched his jaw, sweat beading on his forehead. His cybernetic implants hummed faintly, a fragile lifeline amid the psychic storm. He closed his eyes, focusing inward, recalling the strategies that had saved him before, anchoring his will to memories of Earth, his family, the faces of those who depended on him. "I am Marcus Kane," he vowed silently. "I am not lost." His hands found the console's interface again, despite the tremors. He initiated a countermeasure, a neural disruptor pulse designed to scramble psychic signals. The device was experimental, untested in real combat, but it was his only hope. The ship shuddered violently as explosive charges detonated in the lower decks. A desperate bid by the human fleet to disable the alien command ship. Alarms blared, red lights flashing erratically. The psychic web around Marcus's mind pulsed and writhed. Reacting to the neural disruptor's interference, pain exploded behind his eyes. A white-hot agony that threatened to erase his consciousness. He screamed silently, fists pounding the floor, body convulsing under the psychic backlash. "Hold on, Kane," a voice crackled through his comlink. Lieutenant Jessa Rylan, his trusted second-in-command. "We're inbound. Extraction is 2 minutes out." He swallowed the burning in his throat, fighting through the haze. "Jessa, keep them off me. I'm not going down without a fight." Her voice was steady, filled with fierce loyalty. "Always, sir." Marcus's mind sharpened despite the assault. He pictured the battle plans, the cybernetic pathways within his brain, the tiny fractures in the Overmind's psychic armor. If he could just hold on a little longer. A sudden surge of clarity cut through the chaos. He caught a faint pattern in the webs, a rhythm to the psychic pulses. With trembling hands, he synchronized the disruptor to that rhythm, sending a shockwave through the invisible chains. The psychic grip faltered. Marcus gasped, lungs burning, as the mental chains loosened. The images of invasion fleets and fallen comrades faded into the background, replaced by a raw, primal need to survive. "Not today," he muttered, voice rough but resolute. The Arachnid Overmind's eyes narrowed, sensing the defiance. It lashed out with a torrent of psychic venom, but Marcus was ready. He activated his cybernetic defenses. A shimmering neural shield flared briefly around his head, dampening the assault. He staggered to his feet, breath ragged, muscles trembling. "Time to end this," he whispered, fingers dancing over the console to initiate a self-destruct sequence. The alien command ship was a fortress, but it was also a tomb. If he couldn't escape, he would ensure it took the Overmind with it. Suddenly, a guttural chittering echoed through the ship. A squad of alien warriors burst through a fractured bulkhead, their multi-jointed limbs clicking menacingly. Marcus's hand found his plasma pistol, firing precise bursts that seared through the enemy's chitin. "Jessa," he barked into the comm, "cover me, I'm moving to the extraction point." "Copy that, sir, hold tight." Her voice crackled back, as the alien command ship groaned under the strain of internal explosions. Marcus Kane fought with every ounce of strength left. The psychic web may have tried to break him, but it had only forged his will stronger. In the heart of the enemy's lair, amidst shattered metal and psychic shadows, the human strategist refused to surrender. The battle was far from over, but Marcus Kane was ready to reclaim his mind and rewrite the fate of Earth itself. Marcus Kane jerked the control stick violently, his voice a harsh growl. "No, not now. Not while we're still in range." Red warning lights bathed the cramped cockpit in an oppressive glow. strobing erratically as the ship shuddered violently. Neural feedback cascaded through his cybernetic implants like electric fire, stabbing at his thoughts, distorting his reality. The Arachnid Overmind psychic ambush was devastating and relentless. Each pulse of mental agony was a hammer blow against his mind. His teeth clenched so tightly they ached, and his fists curled into trembling claws on the console. "Come on, damn it," he muttered, voice rough, focus keen. "You've been through worse, but this was different." This was not just a fight for survival. It was a war waged inside his very consciousness. The ship's AI crackled through the comm with clipped urgency. "Warning, incoming psychic network detected. Neural interference escalating. Recommend activating countermeasures immediately." Marcus's eyes flicked to the digital readouts streaming across the holographic interface. The Overmind's psychic tendrils were wrapping tighter, threading through his implants, probing for weaknesses. His cybernetic enhancements, designed explicitly to resist alien mind control, were flickering, struggling to keep the assault at bay. A cold sweat slicked his brow despite the ship's recycled air, as the neural feedback threatened to overwhelm his senses. He forced himself to breathe deeply, each breath a battle in itself. Memories flooded unbidden. The gruff voice of Captain Rourke, his commanding officer, whose cold pragmatism had driven Marcus to the edge, the gentle reassurance of Dr. Elena Miles, the civilian scientist who once saved his life with a daring neurointerface repair, both absent now but their shadows haunting his mind. The tension between duty and trust gnawed at his resolve, but he had no time for hesitation. "Damn you," Marcus whispered through gritted teeth, voice barely audible over the rising storm in his head. "I'm not your puppet." His fingers trembled as they danced over the console, searching desperately for a way to disrupt the psychic network. The neural disruptor embedded in his implants hummed faintly. An experimental piece of tech that could scramble psychic signals, but it was untested under real combat conditions. And the Overmind's assault was unlike anything he'd ever faced. A jarring jolt rocked the ship, throwing him against the seatbelt. "Incoming psychic pulse," the AI intoned flatly, but Marcus felt the impact in every fiber of his being. His vision blurred, colors bled and twisted as the psychic venom invaded deeper. He gasped, struggling to anchor himself. "Marcus, report!" Lieutenant Jessa Ryland's voice crackled over the comm, steady and resolute. "Under attack, neural feedback spiking. I'm holding but barely," Marcus replied, voice tight with strain. "Can you keep those arachnids off me?" "Affirmative, sir." "Covering your 6. Extraction inbound in 90 seconds. The promise of rescue was both a beacon and an unbearable pressure. He couldn't afford to fail, not when Earth was counting on him. His mind wrestled with the invasive psychic tendrils, memories flashing with cruel clarity. Faces of fallen comrades, Lt. Sarah Voss, Commander Lee, haunted him, their sacrifices etched deep in his psyche. The weight of those losses was a blade twisting inside, threatening to shatter his fragile grip on reality. "No," he growled, shaking his head fiercely to dispel the ghosts. "Not now, not ever." Marcus's training kicked in, a lifetime of psychological conditioning and relentless cybernetic enhancements. He focused on the neural disruptor's pulse pattern, analyzing the rhythm of the psychic network. A faint, repeating sequence emerged, a potential vulnerability. He synchronized the disruptor to that pattern, fingers moving with trembling precision. "Come on, work." A sudden feedback loop surged through his implants, sending a white-hot blaze of pain into his skull. He clenched his jaw, gritting through it as the disruptor emitted a sharp pulse. The psychic chains faltered, loosening their grip for the first time since the assault began. "Not today," Marcus hissed, eyes blazing with defiance. But the Overmind was relentless. Its mental voice slithered into his consciousness, cold and mocking. Your will is but a flicker against the eternal web. Surrender and join the infinite hive. Marcus's fingers snapped to his sidearm, a plasma pistol humming to life. The cockpit doors slammed open, and a squad of arachnid warriors spilled inside, their multi-jointed legs clicking in sinister rhythm. Without hesitation, Marcus fired precise bursts, each shot searing through chitin and sinew. The aliens shrieked, retreating momentarily. "Jessa, cover me, I'm moving to the extraction point," he barked into the comm. Heart pounding, "Copy that, sir, hold your ground." Her voice was a lifeline amid the chaos. As he scrambled to his feet, muscles trembling with exhaustion, Marcus's mind sharpened. The Overmind psychic web had a pattern, fractures where his cybernetic enhancements could pierce through. Every second counted. The ship groaned ominously, internal explosions rippling through the hull as the human fleet's assault intensified. The flickering lights and sparking conduits created a hellish landscape around him. Yet despite the physical and psychic torment, Marcus felt a surge of clarity. He locked eyes on the console, fingers flying over the interface to initiate a self-destruct sequence. "If I can't escape, I'll make sure this nest goes down with it." A guttural chittering echoed behind him, more arachnid warriors closing in. Marcus spun, firing bursts from his plasma pistol, each shot a desperate strike against the encroaching darkness. "Almost there," he muttered, heart hammering in his chest. "Hold together, Kane." His cybernetic implants blinked erratically, but he pushed them to their limits, channeling every ounce of his will into blocking the psychic assault. The neural shield flared briefly around his head, a shimmering barrier against the venomous mental tides. "Marcus, status." Jessa's voice was urgent now, the extraction window closing fast. "Sequence engaged. I'm almost clear," he replied, staggering toward the airlock. The Overmind psychic voice roared in his mind, a final, furious lash, but Marcus stood firm. "I am not lost," he declared silently, the promise of survival burning bright. "I am the fortress," with a final burst of strength. He dove through the airlock, just as the alien command ship erupted in a cataclysmic explosion behind him. The shockwave slammed into his shuttle, rattling every bone, but the neural disruptor's pulse held steady, severing the Overmind's psychic reach. Breathing ragged, Marcus Kane collapsed into the pilot's seat, sweat and blood mingling on his brow. The battle was far from over, but for this moment he had reclaimed his mind. His eyes, fierce and unyielding, locked onto the stars beyond. Earth awaited, and Marcus Kane was ready to fight again. Marcus Kane's breath hitched as another wave of psychic venom slammed into his consciousness. "No, not like this," he muttered, teeth clenched so tightly it felt as if they might shatter. The invisible tendrils of the Overmind psychic web wove through his mind, probing, twisting, breaking down every barrier he had so fiercely built. His vision flickered between reality and nightmare, fractured images of alien warships, twisted arachnid limbs, and the faces of fallen comrades burned into his mind like searing embers. His fingers trembled, digging into the cold metal floor beneath him, trying to anchor himself as the invasive hallucinations threatened to consume him. "Focus, damn it, focus." He gritted through the mental storm raging inside his head. Somewhere within the chaos, a singular thought clawed its way to the surface. The psychic web wasn't just an attack. It was a network, a structure with nodes and patterns. If he could understand it, perhaps he could find a way to break it. Marcus's eyes squeezed shut, and he forced himself deeper into the mental battlefield. His consciousness dove inward, swimming through the psychic web like a diver exploring a dark, alien ocean. The web shimmered with a sinister intelligence, threads pulsed with eerie bioluminescence, nodes glowing like malevolent stars, connected by strands of psychic energy. He could feel the Overmind's presence in every filament, a vast collective consciousness seeking to envelop and control him. "Identify the nodes," Marcus whispered to himself, the words barely audible. "Find the weaknesses." His cybernetic implants hummed faintly in response, amplifying his mental acuity just enough to map the network's layout. Each node represented a concentration of psychic power, a control point in the web's architecture. Some nodes were heavily fortified, radiating waves of psychic venom designed to shatter resistance. Others appeared less stable, fractures in the Overmind's psychic armor. The mental dive was risky. The deeper Marcus went, the more vulnerable he became to the Overmind's invasive influence. Yet a spark of strategic insight ignited within him. If he could reverse engineer the web's psychic signals, decode the language of the tendrils, he might turn the Overmind's own weapon against itself. "Not a victim," he muttered fiercely, "a challenger." Suddenly, the psychic assault intensified, the mental tendrils wrapping tighter, squeezing with merciless force. Pain exploded behind his eyes, a white-hot agony that threatened to erase his very sense of self. Hallucinations spiraled out of control, ghostly hands clawed at his mind, whispering lies and despair. Faces of fallen comrades morphed into arachnid monsters, their eyes glowing with cruel malice. Marcus growled, forcing the hallucinations aside with a surge of willpower. "You won't break me," he vowed, voice rough but resolute. "I'm not your prisoner." The Overmind's voice slithered into his mind again, cold and mocking. "Surrender, human. Your resistance is meaningless. Join the hive or be consumed." But Marcus's mind was already racing, piecing together fragments of data from the psychic web. The nodes pulsed rhythmically, a pattern emerging beneath the chaos, a signature the Overmind used to coordinate its assault. If he could mimic that pattern, synchronize his neural disruptor to it, he might generate a feedback loop capable of destabilizing the entire network. A wild, desperate plan formed in his mind. It was a gamble. One wrong move and the Overmind would crush him completely. But the alternative was surrender. "Hold steady, Kane," he whispered to himself, hands shaking as he activated the neural disruptor embedded within his implants. The device hummed softly, syncing with the psychic pulses radiating from the nearest node. Come on," he breathed, fingers trembling as he adjusted the disruptor's frequency. Suddenly, the psychic chains around his mind pulsed violently, a shockwave of energy reverberating through the web. The invasive tendrils faltered, their grip loosening for the first time since the assault began. Marcus gasped, heart pounding fiercely with a mix of pain and triumph. But the victory was short-lived. "Your defiance is but a flicker," the Overmind hissed, fury flooding his mind in a tempest of psychic venom. "You will be extinguished." Marcus's eyes snapped open, vision blurred but burning with determination. The command ship groaned violently as explosions rocked its hull. Sparks rained from exposed conduits, bathing the room in a flickering red glow. He struggled to his feet, muscles trembling with exhaustion and pain. "Jessa," he barked into the comlink, voice thick with strain. "Cover me, I'm moving to the extraction point." "Copy that, sir." Lieutenant Jessa Ryland's voice crackled back, steady and fierce. "Holding position. Extraction inbound in 90 seconds. Marcus didn't hesitate. Plasma pistol in hand, he fired precise bursts into the advancing arachnid warriors that spilled through a fractured bulkhead. Their chitinous limbs clicked menacingly. But his shots seared through their armor with deadly accuracy. Each enemy down was a small victory, a moment bought for his fragile plan to unfold. As he sprinted toward the extraction point, his mind raced. The psychic web was more than a weapon. It was a living network, feeding on fear and despair. growing stronger with every mind it consumed. But every network had a flaw, a point of failure. Marcus's mental dive had revealed fractures, unstable nodes where the Overmind's control wavered. If he could trigger a cascade failure, reverse the psychic signals, and send a feedback surge through the web, he could cripple the Overmind's collective consciousness. It was a suicide mission, but one that could change the course of the war. Almost there, Marcus panted, muscles burning as he fought through the physical and psychic assault. His cybernetic implants flickered erratically, neural feedback hammering his senses, but he pushed forward. Every step a defiant act of will. He reached the console that controlled the ship's psychic network interface. Hands shaking, he interfaced with the alien system, his implants translating the Overmind's psychic code into signals he could manipulate. The nodes blinked in response, the network shuddering as he injected the disruptive waveform. A low hum filled the room, growing into a crescendo. The psychic web writhed, threads unraveling in bursts of shimmering energy. The Overmind's voice screamed in fury, a psychic roar that shook Marcus's very soul. But he held firm. "Not today," Marcus whispered, voice hoarse but filled with unbreakable resolve. "You will not own me." The ship trembled violently as the self-destruct sequence initiated. Marcus fought to maintain the neural disruptor's pulse, amplifying the feedback loop until the web collapsed inward like a dying star. The alien command ship became a tomb for the Overmind's consciousness. As the extraction shuttle's hatch sealed behind him, Marcus Kane collapsed into the pilot's seat. Sweat and blood mingling on his brow, the psychic storm had passed for now. His eyes, fierce and unyielding, locked onto the stars beyond the viewport. The battle had forged him anew, no longer a victim of the Overmind's psychic web. Marcus was a challenger, ready to weaponize the enemy's own network and rewrite the fate of humanity. "Earth awaits," he whispered, voice steady despite the storm inside. "And I'm not done fighting." Marcus Kane's breath hitched again as the psychic tendrils writhed tighter in his mind. The web was no longer merely a trap. It was a cage, a suffocating labyrinth of alien signals threading through every synapse, twisting his thoughts against his will, yet in the chaos. A dangerous idea had taken root. He would feed false psychic signals into the Overmind's web, turning its own network against itself. But the risk was immense. To manipulate the Overmind's control over its alien armadas meant stepping deeper into the psychic abyss, risking total mental collapse or even permanent assimilation into the hive mind. He gritted his teeth, fighting the creeping madness. "If I lose myself here, Earth loses everything." The weight of humanity's fate pressed down on his fractured consciousness like a collapsing star. A voice whispered inside his mind, cold and mocking, the Overmind, sensing his intent. "You play with fire, human. Your mind will burn." Marcus's inner voice pushed back. "I will burn if I must, but I will not break." His fingers trembled over the alien interface, neural implants buzzing as he prepared to inject the fabricated psychic signals. The web pulsed in response, a living network of control and command, its nodes blinking like malignant stars in his mind's eye. Each thread represented a command, a strand of control over the thousands of arachnid warships advancing toward Earth's orbit. "This is it. One wrong move," he thought, "and I'm theirs. Forever." His breath caught as hallucinations flickered, faces of the fallen, the screams of comrades turned to ash. The spider-like ships closing in, but beneath the terror a cold, fierce clarity emerged. He was no longer a victim, but a warrior in a psychic duel against an alien hive mind. "Come on, Kane," he muttered to himself. "You've danced with death before. Just one more step." The console glowed under his fingertips as he began to weave false signals into the Overmind's psychic fabric, a complex pattern of deception designed to hijack the alien network's control over its fleets. The signals mimicked command pulses but twisted their meaning, creating confusion and hesitation among the Armadas. His mind swirled with the feedback. The psychic web throbbed like a living beast, sensing the intrusion. Pain exploded behind his eyes, a white-hot inferno threatening to consume his very identity. His vision blurred, and for a moment he felt himself slipping, a fragment of his consciousness pulled toward the hive. "No, not now, not me," a voice his own echoed within the storm. "I am Marcus Kane, I am not lost." The psychic feedback worsened, tendrils tightening like iron shackles. His implants screamed in protest, neural circuits overloaded with conflicting signals. He staggered, breathing ragged, sweat slicking his skin beneath the cold metal of the alien command ship. The battle raging outside mirrored the war inside his mind, a furious struggle between human will and alien hive consciousness. Suddenly, the Overmind's voice slithered into his thoughts, venomous and cold. "You cannot win. Your mind is fragile, human. Surrender your essence to the collective." Marcus clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to succumb. "I'm not your prisoner," he growled silently, fingers dancing faster over the interface. The psychic web's nodes pulsed erratically as the false signals infiltrated the network. The Overmind's control faltered, its armadas hesitating moments they had never known before. A ripple of disarray spread through the alien fleets, their bioluminescent hulls flickering as command chains scrambled. "This is working," but the cost was visible, his eyes glazed, breath shallow. The psychic strain threatened to fracture his mind. He teetered on the edge of insanity, caught between his identity and the alien collective's pull. "Hold on, Kane," he whispered, voice brittle but resolute. Just a little longer. The physical battle outside erupted in tandem with the psychic chaos. Human warships poured into the confused alien formations, seizing the advantage. Laser fire streaked through space, plasma bolts scorching the hulls of the disoriented Arachnid warships. Explosions blossomed like deadly flowers, shaking the void. Inside the command ship, Marcus's hands trembled violently as he maintained the psychic feedback loop. The false signals grew stronger, feeding back into the web like venom, infecting the Overmind's neural network with chaos. The alien psychic tendrils writhed, twisting in agony. The Overmind screamed, an unearthly sound that echoed through Marcus's consciousness, threatening to splinter his very soul. "You will pay for this defiance," it hissed, lashing out with a final psychic surge. Pain exploded behind Marcus's eyes, white-hot and blinding. He gasped, falling to his knees, vision swimming with fractal nightmares and fractured realities. The voices of the collective clamored to drag him under, promising oblivion. But deep inside, a spark of humanity flared, memories of Earth, of his family, of the faces of those who depended on him. "I am not yours," he whispered, voice trembling but unyielding. Summoning every ounce of willpower, Marcus pushed back against the psychic storm. His implants flared, a shimmering neural shield blooming around his head, dampening the assault. His fingers moved with desperate precision, amplifying the feedback loop until the alien web began to collapse inward. A violent shudder rocked the command ship as the psychic network unraveled, threads snapping and dissolving into void. The alien armadas, cut off from their hive mind, faltered and drifted aimlessly in space. "Now," Marcus barked into his comlink, voice hoarse but commanding. "Understood, sir." Lieutenant Jessa Ryland's crisp reply came through the static. Human fleet engaging. Outside, the human armada surged forward, exploiting the chaos. Ships darted through the confused alien fleets, delivering crippling blows. The battle was brutal but swift, victory inching closer with every shattered Arachnid vessel. Marcus struggled to his feet, legs weak but spirit unbroken. He staggered toward the extraction point, every step a battle against the psychic residue still clawing at his mind. The alien command ship groaned, its systems failing amidst internal explosions as the self-destruct sequence Marcus had initiated ticked down. Behind him, the Overmind's voice faded into a desperate whisper, its control shattered. Marcus collapsed into the extraction shuttle's cockpit, sweat and blood mingling on his brow. His breath came in ragged gasps as neural feedback flickered dangerously in his implants, but the mental chains were broken. Status, Jess's voice was steady, a lifeline cutting through the mental fog. Webs down, Marcus rasped, voice raw but triumphant. The fleets are blind and scattered. Good, we're clearing the area now, she replied. Marcus's eyes locked on the stars beyond the viewport. The psychic war had been won, but the cost was etched deep in his mind. He had walked the edge of madness and returned, bearing the weight of a victory that might only be temporary. I gambled my mind to save Earth, asterisk, he thought grimly. But I'm still here, I'm still fighting, as the shuttle sped away from the dying alien command ship. Marcus Kane whispered to himself, a vow forged in psychic fire. This is not the end. The Overmind may be broken, but I will be its reckoning. Marcus Kane's breath hitched violently as the psychic tendrils writhed relentlessly within his mind. The alien psychic web was no longer just an insidious trap. It had transformed into a suffocating labyrinth, threading through his every synapse, twisting and distorting his very thoughts against his will. His body trembled, sweat slicking his brow beneath the harsh, flickering lights of the alien command ship's shattered deck. Yet amidst the chaos of mental torment, a dangerous resolve ignited deep within him, a resolve born from desperation. An unyielding defiance. He had to sever this connection before it consumed him entirely. His fingers hovered over the alien interface console, trembling with exhaustion and pain. As his cybernetic implants hummed faintly, their fragile lifeline in this psychic maelstrom. The Overmind's vast neural network pulsed ominously, nodes glowing like malevolent stars in his mind's eye. Each one a control point over the thousands of arachnid warships still en route to Earth's orbit. Marcus knew the stakes. If he failed, the psychic link would become his prison forever, and with it, humanity's last hope would die. If I lose myself here, Earth loses everything, he thought grimly. The weight of the entire planet's survival pressing down on his fractured mind like a collapsing star. A cold, venomous voice slithered into his consciousness, mocking and cruel. You play with fire, human, your mind will burn. The Overmind's presence was a parasite, a dark intelligence feeding on fear and despair. But Marcus's inner voice pushed back fiercely, I will burn if I must. But I will not break. His breath caught in his throat as hallucinations flickered, ghostly images of fallen comrades. The screams of those lost in battles past, the spider-like vessels closing in like shadows of doom. Yet beneath the terror, a sharp, fierce clarity emerged. This was no longer a mere prisoner's fight. Marcus was a warrior locked in a psychic duel against an alien hive mind. Come on, Kane, he muttered under his breath, voice ragged but determined. You've danced with death before, just one more step. With deliberate care, he began weaving false psychic signals into the Overmind's neural fabric. His hands moved over the interface with trembling precision, injecting a complex pattern of deception. Command pulses twisted into a confusing web of misinformation designed to hijack the alien fleet's coordination. His implants buzzed fiercely, translating and amplifying the fabricated signals. The psychic web throbbed in agonized response, sensing the intrusion. Pain exploded behind Marcus's eyes, a white-hot inferno threatening to consume his very identity. His vision blurred, fracturing into kaleidoscopic nightmares. For a moment the edges of his consciousness slipped, pulled toward the dark hive. "No, not now, not me." A voice steady and resolute echoed within the storm. "I am Marcus Kane, I am not lost." The psychic feedback worsened. Tendrils tightened like iron shackles, squeezing relentlessly. His neural implants screamed in protest, circuits overloaded with conflicting signals. He staggered, gasping for breath as sweat poured down his face, skin slick beneath the cold metal of the alien ship. The Overmind hissed venomously, "You cannot win. Your fragile human mind will shatter. Surrender your essence to the collective." Marcus clenched his jaw, teeth grinding through the pain. "I'm not your prisoner," he growled silently, fingers dancing faster over the console. The false signals rippled through the psychic network's nodes, scrambling the Overmind's control. Its armadas faltered, hesitation creeping into their coordinated advance. A flicker of hope stabbed through Marcus's exhaustion. This is working, but the cost was brutal. His eyes glazed over, breaths came shallow and ragged. The psychic strain threatened to fracture his mind entirely. He teetered on the razor's edge between sanity and oblivion, caught between his own identity and the seductive pull of the alien collective. "Hold on, Kane," he whispered, voice barely audible but unbreakable. "Just a little longer." Outside, the battle outside erupted in tandem with the psychic chaos. Human warships surged forward, exploiting the confusion in the alien ranks. Laser fire and plasma bolts tore through the dark void, the arachnid vessels exploding like fiery flowers of death. Inside the alien command ship, Marcus fought to maintain the psychic feedback loop. His implants flared, a shimmering neural shield blossomed around his head, dampening the venomous mental assault. His fingers moved with desperate precision, amplifying the disruptive signals until the alien web shuddered violently. Threads snapped like brittle glass, unraveling into nothingness. The Overmind screamed, an unearthly, soul-shattering sound that echoed through Marcus's very being. "You will pay for this defiance," it hissed, lashing out with a final psychic surge. Pain exploded behind Marcus's eyes, blinding and pure agony. He collapsed to his knees, vision swimming with fractal nightmares and warped realities. The voices of the collective clamored to drag him under, promising oblivion and eternal assimilation. But deep inside, a spark of humanity flared, memories of Earth's blue skies, the laughter of his daughter, the steadfast faces of his comrades. These were his anchors. "I am not yours," he whispered, trembling but resolute. Summoning every ounce of willpower, Marcus pushed back against the storm. His implants pulsed brighter, the neural shield flaring fiercely as he amplified the feedback loop. The alien psychic web began to collapse inward, threads dissolving, nodes flickering and dying like stars going nova. A violent shudder rocked the command ship as the psychic network disintegrated. The arachnid armadas, severed from their hive mind, faltered and drifted aimlessly in space, vulnerable and confused. "Now," Marcus barked into his comlink, voice raw but commanding. "Understood, sir." Lieutenant Jessa Ryland's crisp voice came through the static. "Human fleet engaging." Outside, the human armada surged forward, cutting through the disoriented alien fleets with brutal efficiency. Ships darted through the chaos, delivering crippling blows as explosions blossomed across the void. Victory was within reach. Marcus struggled to his feet, legs weak but spirit unbroken. Every step toward the extraction point was a battle against the lingering psychic residue clawing at his mind. The alien ship groaned, systems failing as the self-destruct sequence Marcus had initiated ticked down mercilessly. Behind him, the Overmind's voice faded into desperate, broken whispers, the last echoes of a shattered hive mind. Marcus collapsed into the extraction shuttle's cockpit, sweat and blood mingling on his brow. His breath came in ragged gasps as his cybernetic implants flickered dangerously, but the mental chains were broken. Status, Jessa's voice cut through the haze, steady and reassuring. Webs down, Marcus rasped, voice raw but triumphant. The fleets are blind, scattered. We're clearing the area, she replied, relief evident in her tone. Marcus's gaze locked on the stars beyond the viewport. The psychic war was won, but the price etched deep in his soul. He had danced on the edge of madness and returned, scarred but victorious. I gambled my mind to save Earth. Asterisk, he thought grimly, asterisk, but I'm still here. Still fighting. As the shuttle surged away from the exploding alien command ship, Marcus Kane whispered a vow forged in psychic fire. This is not the end. The Overmind may be broken, but I will be its reckoning. Hours later, aboard the human flagship orbiting Earth, Marcus slumped in a medical bay, his body battered. Mind raw from the psychic onslaught. Lieutenant Jessa stood nearby, her usual fierce composure softened by concern. You did it, Marcus, she said quietly, brushing a damp lock of hair from his forehead. You saved us all. He managed a weak, crooked smile. We bought time, Jessa, but the war isn't over, she nodded, eyes steady. And you're the only one who can lead the charge next time. Marcus's gaze drifted to the viewport, where Earth's fragile blue orb spun silently in the void. The cost of survival weighed heavily on his shoulders, the scars of the battle both visible and invisible. I lost a part of myself in that web, he admitted, voice low. The line between control and surrender is razor thin. But I learned something. Strength isn't just about resistance. It's about embracing vulnerability and fighting through it. Jessa's eyes glistened. You're human, Marcus. That's your greatest weapon. He chuckled softly, exhaustion and hope mingling in his voice. Then let's make sure humanity uses it well. As Earth's defenders began to regroup and rebuild. Marcus Kane lay back against the cold medical table, his mind finally at rest, but forever changed. The psychic war had carved him anew, a warrior forged in sacrifice and ingenuity. And in the quiet after the storm, a solemn hope blossomed, that humanity's resilience would endure, no matter the cost.